Greetings, human. I welcome you. The thumbnail speaks for itself, so let's just get down to the disclaimer. The video is not made for anyone writing exams tomorrow or next week, as the amount of information that you're about to receive may become burdensome, and it is far from my intention for you to get something called information overload. The video, however, promises to dissect every single thing that is in this paper, answering both questions why and why not. Now let us begin. Section A. Short questions. Question 1. Definitions. Give the most appropriate term for each of the following expressions. For definitions in IT and CAT, my advice would be for you to arrange every single exam papers 5 years prior up to your current year, both May and November exam papers. Then set it up as a single PDF, print it out and share it with your friends. A wise man once said, "The best and most effective way to learn for those who aren't completely self-motivated is to put in the effort as though it is for everyone in your inner circle, including yourself." 1.1. A program which converts source code into machine code line by line. The answer there is interpreter. Now please, do not make a mistake of writing translator. Believe me, it happens. 1.2. The part of the machine cycle which translates the instruction into CPU commands. The answer there is decode. Now let's talk about the machine cycle for a brief moment. The machine cycle has 4 main stages: fetch, decode, execute, and store. Fetch collects instruction from memory. Decode interprets instructions into CPU commands. Execute executes CPU command. And finally, store transmits and writes the result back to the memory. Now this is the most basic function every simple to complex machine follows. Now let's take an example of a digital timer. A person, let's say a girl wants to record the amount of time that it takes for her to type up an article in exactly 2 minutes. The digital timer has exactly 3 buttons. The first one records the minutes, the second one records the seconds, and the third one is a combination function of start and stop. Once the minute button has been clicked 2 times, the machine fetches the instruction. The instruction from memory tells it to multiply the number of times the minute button has been clicked by 60 seconds. Then afterwards, it decodes the information. After collecting the number of times the button has been clicked, it multiplies it by 60 seconds. Then afterwards, it translates that instruction into CPU commands. Once the start button has been clicked, it executes the CPU commands. The execution process makes the timer count down to the last second. The store process transmits and writes the results back to the memory. The transmission can be seen in the monitor of the digital timer. It will show the number going down up until it reaches 0.00. 1.3. A form of network transmission where packets are transmitted to all nodes on the network rather than a specific device. The answer here is broadcasting. 1.4. A memory management technique where secondary storage can be used as if it were main memory. The answer is virtual memory. Now that raises the question, why virtual? We understand the difference between secondary storage and RAM. RAM is volatile memory, which means that once the computer switches off, the memory that it was storing would be completely eliminated. Secondary storage is permanent memory. Now, what this technique does is that it creates the illusion that a physical RAM has been placed in the motherboard of the computer, when in reality, all we did was share the permanent storage, which is our HDD or our SDD, with the memory. So now let me ask you a question. Now that we know that virtual memory is stored in the secondary storage, which stores permanent memory, once the computer switches off, will the virtual memory completely be eliminated? The answer is yes. This is because the computer still believes that it is an added RAM. Therefore, it will treat whatever memory it stores there as volatile, and it will completely be eliminated once the computer is switched off. 1.5. Reorganizing the data stored on HDD into contiguous blocks. This technique is known as disk defragmentation, or defragmentation in short. 1.6. A portion of a packet which contains the data being transmitted. The answer there is payload. Let's discuss the structure of a data packet. A data packet has 3 main properties. Firstly, the header, the payload, and lastly, the trailer. The header contains control information such as source and destination IP addresses, packet length, and sequence numbers. The payload is the actual data being transmitted, such as the text, images, video, or audio. The last one is the trailer, containing error checking data such as checksums or cyclic redundancy checks, CRCs, to ensure data integrity. So now let's assume that a person is downloading a video from the internet. The video right now is located in a server, which, as we can see here, the server IP address is using IPv6. And the receiver IP address, which is the person's phone, is using IPv4 address. Now, as the person is downloading the video, the header and the trailer would practically be the same, because the sender IP address and the receiver IP address is the same, and the error checking protocol would probably be the same. So now the only difference would be the payload. Assuming that each packet transmits 2 or 3 seconds of the video, every single video would have its own unique header sequence number. The first packet, which is 2 to 3 seconds, would have the sequence number 1, the second packet 2, the third packet 3, and so on. And the size of each payload of the packet would be different because the video would contain different scenes which has a lot of motion. Now, that is just for this example. Some data transferer will have different header, payload, and trailers altogether. 1.7. An older communications technology which simultaneously transmits voice and data over public telephone networks using copper cables. The answer there is asymmetrical digital subscriber line. The key giveaways were copper cables, public telephone, and older communications. 1.8. Software which protects a computer against malicious programs. The answer there is anti-malware. Anti-malware seems to be the most preferred option these days because it encapsulates every other thing. Antivirus is also correct. 1.9. A secure data transmission protocol for viewing internet pages with a web browser. The answer there is HTTPS. The key giveaway there is secure transmission protocol and web browser. 1.10. Software which redirects traffic through a network of servers to avoid being traced and which uses layered encryption for protection. The answer is Tor, the onion router, but VPN is also a valid answer. Section B, System Technologies, Question 2, Theory. For each of the terms in column A below, you should select the most correct definition in column C, matching the letter to the question number. You should merely write down the appropriate letter in column B. An example is shown in question 2.0 using W as the correct answer. Now I want you to pause and try to answer every single question here before we start. I'm going to give a detailed explanation as best as I can. For those of you who are not in access with a pen, paper, then you can just simply pause before I give the answer. If you do not do this, then you're a chicken. Now let us continue. 2.1. Solid state drive. The answer there after looking through the option is letter L. Question 2.2. Registers. For those of you who are not yet familiar with the component of a CPU, I advise that as a grade 12 learner or as a learner about to enter into the grade 12 class, you best get familiar with this because it is the most important thing you can do for yourself. Honestly, you have no idea how many questions come up about the component of a CPU. So get familiar. If you are familiar with it, then you will recognize that register is one of the components of the CPU. With that knowledge, you can easily find the answer, which is letter C. But let's discuss for a brief moment what registers are. Registers are inbuilt memory within the chip of the CPU. This memory stores every single data that the CPU is currently using and that the CPU will use thereafter the current process. This is how the CPU is able to maintain its speed. Next question, 2.3. CMOS. Complementary metal oxide semiconductor. With the expansion of the abbreviation, all we have to do is look through the list of options and find any single instance of semiconductor. Once we do, we narrow down the search. We will notice that letter D and letter I both have semiconductor written in it. But now, therein lies the problem. we must understand the difference between CMOS and BIOS. If we have come this far and still don't understand the difference, then we can just look at what we understand about one of them. Most people tend to be on the BIOS side of complete comprehension due to their knowledge of CAT, Computer Applications Technology. With that, we can answer the question saying that letter D is BIOS for 2.7. Therefore, that only leaves us with the answer of letter I for question 2.3. Now let's take a look at the main differences. Complementary metal oxide semiconductor is a chip that stores configuration data for the computer's basic input and output system. Now notice that it stores the computer configuration data for BIOS, meaning that it only focused on storage. As for BIOS, we can see that this one is a semiconductor chip which stores instructions to load the basic computer hardware on startup, meaning that it accesses CMOS and not the other way around. BIOS accesses CMOS and CMOS stores configuration data which BIOS has instructions on how to load. Now, the question might be, what type of data does CMOS store? It stores information like date and time, boot order, hard drive settings, keyboard and mouse settings, and other low-level system settings. Now, when a person buys a laptop or a computer and sets it to dark mode, what happens once the computer switches off, and how does it remember? This is where CMOS comes in. That is a low-level system setting which makes it so that every single time you switch on your computer again, the computer remembers that the last system setting chosen was dark mode. 2.4. I/O range. I/O generally almost always stands for input-output. So with this knowledge, we can look through the list of options and find that letter N is the most logical answer. It acts as a buffer to speed up data transfer between input and output devices. 2.5. Virtual memory. If we look through the list of options, there are two most probable answers to this question. We notice that the technique is temporary data storage from the RAM to the hard drive and not from the hard drive to the RAM, because what we're trying to do is increase memory space and not decrease it. So because of this knowledge, we can safely eliminate letter P and choose letter M as our answer. Question 2.6. Compiler. The very word itself tells us that we're combining a group of individual logic into a single whole. With this, we can look through the list of options and find that letter K is our answer. Software used to convert source code into object code. 2.7. We've answered this, and the answer is letter D. 2.8. Freemium. Freemium is a type of software that allows you to download it and use it. But there's a catch. There's always a catch. Either on the first release or after the first update of the software, there are unbelievably advanced and cool perks and services that will only allow you to use it once you give away what is rightfully yours. A free software that has cool and advanced features that everybody wants to use but cannot use because they have not paid for the premium feature. So that's the gist of it. Free plus premium combines to freemium. And now you know. Answer is letter O. 2.9. SATA. The serial in this abbreviation stands for the fact that data packets are transferred in sequential order. That is, one after the other. Now this is an advanced technology because this technique increases the speed of the data transfer. It reduces the noise for those of you who are familiar with the noise machines usually make, especially those who buy a cheaper charger for their laptops. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then hopefully you'll get it. I ain't trying to curse anyone, I'm just trying to bless you with experience. The third is that it reduces power usage and many other. Now, the last A, which stands for attachment, means that it attaches mainly, if not even only, storage devices. Storage devices such as the computer's secondary storage, SSD and HDD. The answer there is letter B. Question 2.10. FSB, front side bus. Front side bus is a communication pathway which connects the CPU to the system memory, which is the RAM, and other components of the motherboard. With this definition, we can safely say that letter A is the correct answer. Consider the following scenario when answering the rest of the examination paper unless otherwise stated or the question are of a general nature. Fairly Fit is a fitness center being established in a local shopping mall. They offer customers gym facilities such as weight room, swimming pool, and sauna, and a health food cafe. Question 3. Application. The business owners will need various computer hardware items for the fitness center. To reduce startup costs, they have purchased a second-hand server with the following specifications. Now, let us address a matter. Whenever students see something like a server, they think about this endless row of sophisticated computers that goes completely over their head. Obviously, the examiners do not want you to think about such things. They don't want you to get stressed whenever they write server. A server is simply to be thought of as a normal computer that has extremely high specs. That's all it is. Now, with that idea in mind, let us move on. 3.1. Let us move on with the specifications. An Intel Xenon CPU with 8 cores and 3.3 GHz. 2 CPU slots, 1 is filled. 20 MB level 3 cache, DDR3 RAM, 8 RAM slots, 3 x 2 TB HDD, supported RAM chips, 2 GB, 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB, and 32 GB, 4 x USB 3 slots, Intel onboard graphics card. 3.1. Give an example of one device which will connect to a server via USB. Now, with what I previously advised, what can you tell me will be able to connect to your computer either at school or at home? The answer is simple and straightforward. Either a mouse, a keyboard, or even a printer. Now, those are the 3 most likely answers because they are easy to think about and they're just asking for one device. 3.2. The specification doesn't state how much RAM there is on the motherboard. What is the maximum amount of RAM which can be installed using? The first one, 2 GB. The total amount of RAM is simply 2 GB times the number of slots that they are. So 2 times 8 is what? Exactly, 16. Next, 32 GB. 32 times 8 gives us 256 GB. Let us move on to 3.3. 3.3. An operating system is critical to the operation of any computer. 3.3.1. What are the 3 basic functions of an operating system? The first function of an operating system is to provide a user interface. Think about it. Whenever we load up our computer, we are given this beautiful interface, and we're not given codes like what it used to be or how we see it in movies. The next function is that it runs programs. Now, when it runs, we mean it loads, it executes, and it terminates programs. The third function is that it manages computer resources. There's a spelling error there, sorry. So those are not the only things that a computer operating system does. Those are just the 3 most basic ones that the computer operating system must do. Think about it. We've learnt about BIOS. BIOS checks every single thing that is functional on a computer's hardware system, and then it gives the rest of the operation to the operating system. Now, the operating system does a lot, and these are the 3 gists of that lot that it does. 3.3.2. The server does not include an operating system. Complete the following table to suggest an operating system suitable for the server in this scenario. You need to name one operating system, give one reason to justify your choice, and name the license model used for the operating system. Now, we can really choose any operating system. We just need to be able to describe those 3. The first one that I chose was Windows. Then the second one was Ubuntu. I chose Windows because it is one of the most widely used and recognized operating systems in the world. Now notice that I have these things highlighted. The highlighted part are all you really need to write. I just wrote more information so that we can understand this. Let us continue. I chose Windows because it is one of the most widely used and recognized operating systems in the world, with a large market share and a vast array of software applications available for it, making it a popular choice for both personal and business use. I chose Ubuntu because it is one of the most popular and widely used Linux distribution, known for its user-friendly interface, stability, and large community of users and developers. Now, we've just named the operating system and we have justified our choice. Now, for the last one, we need to name the license model used for the operating system. The license model used for Windows is an End-User License Agreement, EULA. Windows is released under a proprietary license model, specifically the End-User License Agreement, which is a commercial license that restricts the use, modification, and distribution of the software. The EULA license model means that Microsoft retains ownership and control over the software, and users are only granted permission to use it under certain terms and conditions. Now for Ubuntu. Ubuntu is released under the GNU General Public License, which is a free and open source software license that allows users to freely use, modify, and distribute the software. The GPL license model ensures that Ubuntu remains free and open source, and that any modifications or derivatives of the software must be released under the same license. Now that we understand, we move on to 3.4. Users wish to improve the performance of computers. 3.4.1. The specification states 2 CPU slots, although only one is currently used. If a second processor is added, would this be considered a coprocessor? Justify your answer with one reason. Yes or no. Now the answer here is no. However, the memo's correct answer was yes. So now why am I saying no? Well, that's easy. I asked an AI. Specifically, I asked 3 different AI, and they gave me somewhat 3 similar answers, supporting the no option. The first one is Meta AI. A coprocessor is a specialized processor that assists the main CPU in performing specific tasks, whereas adding a second processor to the second CPU slot would be considered a multi-processing or dual processing configuration, where 2 identical CPUs work together to share the workload and improve overall system performance. In this case, the second processor would be a peer to the first processor, and not a specialized assistant, and therefore not a coprocessor. Copilot. A coprocessor is a specialized processor designed to handle specific tasks and supports the main processor, such as graphics or mathematical calculations. In contrast, adding a second processor in a dual CPU system means both processors share the workload of general computing tasks, rather than one supporting the other in a specialized role. ChatGPT. A coprocessor is a specialized processor designed to handle specific tasks or operations, such as floating-point arithmetic or graphics processing, which complements the main CPU. In contrast, adding a second processor to a system that supports multiple CPU, often referred to as a multi-core or multi-processor system, means both processors are used to handle general computing tasks, essentially working together to increase overall processing power and efficiency. They share the load of regular computational tasks rather than focusing on specialized functions. Thus, the second processor would be considered another main CPU rather than a coprocessor. The justification there is based on the essence of what a coprocessor is. Now that we understand why no was chosen as the answer, let us move on. 3.4.2. Multitasking and multi-threading are 2 commonly used techniques to improve performance. Define each of these concepts and give one example of how each can improve performance. The highlighted part can be taken as the answer. So now, let us start with multitasking. The definition. Multitasking is a technique where multiple programs or tasks are executed simultaneously by the operating system, sharing the same resources such as CPU, memory, and input-output devices. Now, the example. A user is working on a document in a word processor while also listening to music and browsing the internet. The operating system switches between these tasks quickly, giving the illusion that all tasks are running simultaneously. This improves performance by increasing productivity. The user can work on multiple tasks simultaneously, reducing time spent switching between applications. Now, if you are a student and didn't think of this, shame on you. This is the most comprehensive and relatable example you'll ever get in this topic. Multi-threading. Multi-threading is a technique where a single program or process is divided into multiple threads, each executing a separate part of the program's code. These threads share the same memory space and resources, but can run concurrently, improving responsiveness and throughput. The example. A web browser uses multiple threads to load a web page. One thread loads HTML, another thread loads images, and another loads the JavaScript. This improves performance by improving responsiveness. The browser can display the HTML content quickly while images and JavaScript are loaded in the background, making the web page load faster and more responsive. Now, all of you should have by now noticed that whenever you open a web page, the text comes out first, then the image, video, and whatever else is there. This is us literally experiencing the multi-threading process. Let us move on. 3.4.3. The processor has 20 MB of level 3 cache. A. What type of RAM is used in processor caches? The answer here is SRAM. Static RAM. Now, what are caches? Caches are automatic storage for frequently used data. So now, the question lies, what is static RAM? Static RAM is a type of volatile memory that is faster and more expensive than dynamic RAM. Dynamic RAM is the one that is used in the actual RAM, the main memory. This is important for the processor cache, which needs to provide data to the processor quickly to avoid slowing it down. Low latency. Static RAM has a lower latency than dynamic RAM, which means that it can respond quickly to requests for data. The third one is high bandwidth. Static RAM can transfer data at high speeds, which is important for processor caches that need to handle large amounts of data. The fourth one, low power consumption. Static RAM consumes less power than dynamic RAM, which is important for processor caches that are often located on the same chip as the processor. So now, static RAM is used in various levels of processor caches, including level 1, level 2, and level 3 caches. So now here is a depiction of what it would look like. There is the CPU, then there is the level 1 cache, the level 2 cache, then the level 3 cache, then the main memory which uses dynamic RAM. Level 1, level 2, and level 3 caches are all static RAM. So now the capacity of level 1 cache is 16 to 64 kilobytes. I know, it's very small. Level 2 caches are typically 256 to 512 kilobytes. Then finally, level 3 caches are typically 2 megabytes to 8 megabytes. But in this case, we got 20 megabytes for level 3 cache because it is a server. So now that we understand this, why does level 1 cache have so little space? The reason is this: the less space you have, the less things you're able to put in that space. And the less things you're able to put in that space, the faster it is for you to look through everything and move on to the next step. Level 1 cache and level 2 cache typically serve a single processor. The reason is because of the amount of space that it possesses. You can't share stuff that has so limited space. So now level 3 cache is the one that is typically shared because of the amount of space that it has. Now, because we understand the main purpose of a CPU with all the calculations that it needs to do, it needs to be able to access frequently used data as quickly as possible. The amount of time that it will take the CPU to reach the main memory will not be affected by the number of caches that are in between the two. In this way, if the CPU is able to find what it is looking for in level 1 cache, or level 2 cache, or level 3 cache, then that means that it will be able to respond far faster, thereby increasing proficiency. Letter B. Will it be possible to increase the size of the level 3 cache to improve the performance of the CPU further? Justify your answer with one reason. The answer there is no. It may not be possible to increase the size of the level 3 cache to improve the performance of the CPU further. Why? Increasing the size of the level 3 cache would lead to increased latency. As we discussed earlier, the larger the size, the more things you're able to put within, and the more things that you're able to put within, the more time you'll take looking through all those stuffs. So now let us continue. Increasing the size of the level 3 cache would lead to increased latency, as the cache would take longer to search and retrieve data from the larger cache, potentially offsetting any benefit from the increased cache size. This is known as the cache latency trade-off, where larger cache can lead to slower access times, diminishing the performance benefits. Letter C. Caches can either be shared or unshared. Shared means that each core of the processor makes use of the same cache memory. Explain why level 1 cache is more likely to be unshared compared to level 3 cache, which is often shared. The reason is this. Level 1 cache is more likely to be unshared compared to level 3 cache because level 1 cache is typically smaller and faster and is designed to serve the immediate needs of a single core. The characteristics. Its proximity. Level 1 cache is located closest to the CPU cores. It is designed to provide the fastest possible access to frequently used data and instructions. The size. It is also relatively small compared to the others. The memo states that level 1 is more likely not to be shared as it is smaller and closer to the CPU, or more likely to have the instructions which a particular core is wanting. 3.4.4. The server has an onboard graphics card. True or false? An onboard graphics card makes use of system RAM. Support your answer with one reason. The answer there is true. Onboard graphics card, also known as integrated graphics, use system RAM, which is the main memory, as their video memory. Unlike dedicated graphics cards which have their own dedicated video memory, integrated graphics cards share the system's RAM for storing graphics data and textures. This is because the onboard graphics are integrated into the motherboard, or CPU. As a result, the system's RAM is allocated part of its resource to handle graphics processing tasks. This shared memory approach can impact overall memory performance since the RAM is used for both general computing tasks and graphics processing. So your answer there could be the IEB's answer. It needs RAM in order to manipulate the graphics. So now, why is it needed in a server? Integrated graphics cards are designed to be more power effective and cost effective. And using system RAM helps to reduce the overall cost and power consumption of the system. Letter B. Regarding the current scenario, would you recommend that the owners use an additional graphics card in the server? Justify your answer with one reason. The answer is no. Why? There would be no graphics demanding programs that would be run on the server. The question specifically asks us to regard the scenario. The server's primary role will be handling administrative tasks such as managing memberships, processing transactions, and possibly supporting a small number of digital displays for in-house information. Integrated graphics, as included in the Intel onboard graphics card, are generally sufficient for these functions. They can handle standard Office applications, web-based tools, and basic graphical interfaces needed for server management. Additional graphics cards are typically recommended for tasks that involve high-resolution graphics, intensive rendering, and specialized applications that require significant GPU power. In the context of a fitness center server, focusing on membership management, point-of-sale systems, and basic operational needs, integrated graphics are adequate. Adding a dedicated graphics card would not provide substantial benefit and could unnecessarily increase costs without improving the server's core functionality. Now that is just an explanation. The answer, no, there would be no graphics demanding programs that would be run on the server, is more than sufficient. Letter C. Name two components that will be present on a dedicated graphics card that improve the computer's overall performance. The answer is GUI and video RAM. Section C, Internet and Communication Technologies. Question 4, Theory. For questions 4.1 to 4.5, you need to select the most correct answer from the options A to D. The answer grid is at the bottom of this page for your answers. You merely need to write down the appropriate letter for your answers. This is what we're going to do. We're going to choose the correct option and we're going to discuss why the other options are not correct. Question 4.1. DHCP is a protocol used to set up transmission security. That's A, which is wrong. DHCP is a protocol used to allocate IP addresses to devices. That is B, and it is correct. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. It is a network protocol that automatically assigns IP addresses and other network settings to devices on a network. The other options are incorrect because letter A, DHCP is not a protocol used to set up transmission security. That would be protocols like SSL or TLS or IPsec. Letter C is not correct because DHCP is not a protocol specifically designed for mobile networks. While DHCP can be used on mobile networks, it's not its primary purpose. Letter D is not correct because DHCP is not a protocol used to link URL and IP addresses. That would be the Domain Name System, DNS protocol, which translates domain names to IP addresses. Now, here's how DHCP works. It connects a device to the network. The device sends a request to the DHCP server, asking it for an IP address and other network settings. The DHCP server assigns an available IP address and other settings such as subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS server addresses to the device. The device uses the assigned IP address and settings to communicate on the network. Now, obviously, we understand the importance of an IP address. In order for a device which is downloading a video or generally communicating over a network, it is important to have an IP address because it tells the network where your location is. In this way, whatever you request will be sent directly to your device. So that leaves the question. Is it true that every single time a device connects to a different network, it receives a new IP address? When a device connects to a different network, it typically receives a new IP address from the network's DHCP server. This is because each network has its own pool of available IP addresses, and the device needs to be assigned an IP address that is valid on that specific network. Here are some scenarios where a device might receive a new IP address. The first one is switching between Wi-Fi networks. The second one is changing Internet Service Provider, ISPs. The third one is traveling to another location, and the last one in this example is restarting your router. If you restart your router, you might receive a new IP address from the ISP's DHCP server, depending on the ISP's configuration. There are cases where devices retain their IP addresses. This is known as static IP address. If a device is configured with a static IP address, it will retain that IP address even if it connects to a different network. The second one is mobile networks. Mobile networks often retain their IP address when switching between different cellular networks, as the IP address is assigned by the mobile network operator. Let us move on. Question 4.2. Thin clients. Letter A. Thin clients are only used on cable networks. Not necessarily. Letter B. Thin clients are used to reduce server processing requirements. False. Letter C. Thin clients are devices with minimal processing ability. True. Now let us discuss why the other options are incorrect. We will start by defining what thin clients are. Thin clients are lightweight computers that rely on central server for processing and storage. They have minimal processing power, memory, and storage and are designed to provide basic functionality such as accessing applications, browsing the internet, and running simple tasks. The other options are incorrect because thin clients can be used on both cabled and wireless networks. Letter B. Thin clients actually increase server processing requirements as the server handles most of the processing and storage tasks. Letter D. While thin clients can be used in school networks, they are not commonly used in most school networks. However, they may be used in specific situations, such as in computer labs and libraries, where users need to access specific applications or data. 4.3. MAC addresses. Letter A. MAC addresses uniquely identify network cards. True. Completely true. Let us go to the definition of MAC addresses. MAC, standing for Media Access Control. MAC addresses are unique identifiers assigned to network interface controllers or network cards. They are used to identify a device at the data link layer of the OSI model. B. While MAC addresses do identify devices on a network, they specifically identify the network card, not the node or the device itself. Letter C. MAC addresses do not identify switch ports. Switch ports are identified by the port numbers. Letter D. MAC addresses do uniquely identify network cards, so this option is incorrect. Note, it's worth noting that MAC addresses can be spoofed or changed, but this is not a common practice and is usually done for specific security or testing purposes. 4.4. Ethernet. Ethernet is a commonly used LAN protocol. True. Letter B. Ethernet uses ARP, Address Resolution Protocol, to identify devices. True. Letter C. Ethernet allows for different transmission speeds on the same network. True. The most correct answer is letter D, all of the above. Now let us explain. Letter A. Ethernet is indeed a commonly used LAN protocol. It's a popular choice for building local area networks and is widely used in homes, offices, and data centers. Letter B. Ethernet uses ARP, Address Resolution Protocol, to identify devices on a network. ARP is a protocol that maps IP addresses to MAC addresses, allowing devices to communicate with each other. Letter C. Ethernet allows for different transmission speeds on the same network. Ethernet networks can operate at various speeds, such as fast Ethernet, which is 100 megabytes per second, gigabit Ethernet, which is 1000 megabytes per second, 10 gigabit Ethernet, which is 10,000 megabytes per second, 40 gigabit Ethernet, which is 40,000 megabytes per second, and 100 gigabit Ethernet, which is 100,000 megabits per second. Ethernet networks can also use auto-negotiation to automatically adjust the transmission speed to the higher speed supported by both devices. 4.5. Video on demand. Letter A. Video on demand can only be offered on a cabled network. Not necessarily true. Letter B. Video on demand eliminates the constraint of static broadcast schedules. True. Now let us discuss what video on demand is and does. Video on demand is a service that allows users to select and watch video content at any time, rather than being tied to a traditional broadcasting schedule. VOD eliminates the constraint of static broadcast schedule by allowing users to watch content at any time rather than a fixed broadcast time, enabling users to pause, rewind, and fast-forward content, giving them more control over their viewing experience. Providing a wide range of content options, including movies, TV shows, and original content. VOD can be delivered over various networks, including cable networks, fiber optic networks, satellite networks, internet protocol television networks, and over-the-top streaming services. Now, the other options are incorrect because A. VOD can be offered on various types of networks, not just cabled networks. Letter C. VOD can use various protocols for transmissions, including TCP, UDP, and HTTP. The choice of protocol depends on the specific implementation and requirement of the VOD service. Letter D is incorrect because VOD is not usually offered as a free service. While some VOD services may offer free content or trials, many require a subscription or rental fee to access premium content. VOD has revolutionized the way people consume video content, providing more flexibility and control over their viewing experiences. Its popularity has led to the growth of streaming services and changed the way content is created, distributed, and consumed. Now this may raise the question, OTT stands for over the top. In the context of video streaming, OTT refers to the delivery of video content over the internet, bypassing traditional broadcast and cable television platforms. OTT services allow users to stream video content directly to their devices, such as smartphones. This is how we are able to watch anime. Smartphones, tablets, smart TVs, streaming devices, and gaming consoles are common examples. 4.6. Two techniques used to compress data are lossy and lossless compression. 4.6.1. For each of the characteristics listed above, you must indicate whether each applies to lossy or lossless compression. You need to tick the appropriate box. Before we begin, let us take a quick look through this beautiful illustration at the left of our screen. We see from the image that there are three general types of compressions: lossy, glossy, and lossless, but we're asked to focus on mainly lossy and lossless. Lossy compressions compresses files significantly, from 6.9 megabytes down to 0.5 megabyte in this example, and lossless compresses only 3%, from 6.9 megabytes to 6.7 megabyte. Now, the definitions. Lossy compression. Lossy compression reduces the size of data by discarding some of the data, which can lead to a loss of quality. This technique is commonly used for compressing multimedia data such as images, audio, and video. Examples of lossy compression algorithm include JPEG, Joint Photographic Export Group for images, MP3, MPEG Audio Layer 3, MPEG, Moving Picture Export Group for video. Lossy compressions work by removing redundant or unnecessary data, approximating data using mathematical models, discarding data that is less important for human perception. Now, lossless compression, on the other hand, reduces the size of data without discarding any of the data, preserving the original quality. This technique is commonly used for compressing text, executable files, and data that requires precise preservation. Examples of lossless compression algorithm include zip, zip file format, gzip, GNU zip, PNG, portable network graphics for images. Lossless compression works by identifying and removing redundant data, representing data using more efficient encoding schemes, using statistical models to predict and encode data. The key differences between lossy and lossless compressions are as follows. Lossy compression sacrifices some data to achieve smaller size files, while lossless compression preserves all data. Lossy compressions is typically used for multimedia data, while lossless compressions is used for data that requires precise preservation. In summary, lossy compressions are suitable for applications where some data loss is acceptable, such as images and audio compression, while lossless compressions is necessary for applications where data integrity is crucial, such as text and executable files. Now the answer. 4.6.1. Letter A. Characteristic. Removes as much data as possible from the original file. Quickly take a look and answer it yourself. Then we'll move on to 4.6.2. Here are the answers. 4.6.2. For two of the three characteristics above, explain why you chose lossy or lossless compression. Name the characteristic and then write your explanation. Circle the characteristic letter A, B, or C. I circled letter A. Lossy. The more data removed from the file, the smaller the file becomes. Characteristic 2. Lossless. The original quality of the data must be maintained. Thus, little data will be lost. As a result, little space will be made. Question 5. Application. Fairly Fit needs some advice regarding the network they are installing. The network will need to connect laptops and mobile devices used by the gym, the cafe, and customers. The business will also have a website allowing customers to purchase gym contracts, gym clothing, and order food from the cafe. 5.1. Fairly Fit have been given the following network design. Fairly Fit network diagram. From top to bottom, it reads Internet, firewall, router, Ethernet switch, server, wireless access point, laptop, smartphone, printer. The only cabled connections will be to the server and the wireless access points. All other devices will connect via a wireless connection. In the diagram, 2 wireless access points are shown. There will be significantly more than this in the installation. 5.1. What is the function of a wireless access point? The answer is this. A wireless access point, WAP, is a networking device that allows wireless devices to connect to a wired network. Let us highlight the key points to this definition. Let's move on. The cables that you see in this diagram is just the charging cables. Now, wireless access points. Its primary function is to transmit and receive wireless signals. WAPs transmit and receive wireless signals to and from devices such as laptops, smartphones, and tablets. The second function is that it connects wireless devices to the network. WAPs act as a bridge between wireless devices and wired networks, allowing devices to access network resources such as internet, printers, and file servers wirelessly. Point 3. Authenticate and authorize devices. WAPs can authenticate and authorize devices before allowing them to connect to a network, ensuring that only authorized devices have access to the network. Point 4. Manage wireless network settings. WAPs can manage wireless network settings such as channel selection, transmission power, and encryption to ensure reliable and secure wireless connectivity. Point 5. Extend network coverage. WAPs can be used to extend network coverage to areas where wired connections are not feasible or cost-effective. 5.1.2. State one advantage and one disadvantage for laptops and mobile devices using only wireless connections. Your answer may not be the opposite of each other. 5.1.2. Advantages. Convenience and mobility. Wireless connections allow devices to move freely around the network area without being tethered to a physical cable. Point 2. Easy setup and deployment. Wireless connections eliminates the need for cable installation, making it easier to set up and deploy devices. Point 3. Flexibility and scalability. Wireless networks can be easily expanded or modified as needed, without the need for additional cabling. Point 4. Reduces clutter and maintenance. Without cables, devices are less prone to damage and maintenance is simplified. Point 5. Improved collaboration. Wireless connections enable easy sharing and collaboration between devices. Now, disadvantages. Security risks. Wireless connections are more vulnerable to hacking and eavesdropping, as data is transmitted through the air. Point 2. Interference and reliability issues. Wireless signals can be disrupted by physical barriers, other wireless devices, and electromagnetic interference. Point 3. Speed and performance limitations. Wireless connections can be slower and less reliable than wired connections, especially in areas with high network congestion. Point 4. Battery life impact. Wireless devices may consume more power to maintain connections, reducing battery life. Point 5. Dependence on wireless infrastructure. Devices are reliant on the availability and quality of wireless infrastructure, which can be affected by various factors. For example, distance, obstacles, and interference. Think of WAP as a wireless gateway that enables devices to connect to the network without the need for cables. 5.1.3. Which topology does the network design use? Justify your answer with one reason that highlights this network topology's characteristic. As we can see, this looks a lot like a star topology. Now that we've answered the question, let us discuss what network topology is. Network topology refers to the physical and logical arrangement of devices on a network, including their connections and relationships to each other. It describes how devices are connected and how data is transferred between them. Network topology is important because it affects point 1. Network performance. Topology can impact data transmission speed, reliability, and scalability. Point 2. Network security. Topology can influence vulnerability to attacks and unauthorized access. Point 3. Network maintenance. Topology can affect ease of maintenance, troubleshooting, and upgrades. Now that we've defined network topologies, some of you might wonder, how many types of topologies are there? Here is the answer to your question. Pause the video, look through it, and remember, it is important to identify and memorize specific words needed for a definition to be valid. 5.2. It is important that all the wireless traffic is encrypted. 5.2.1. What is meant by the term encrypted when referring to network traffic? The answer: encrypted means that the data being transferred is scrambled or encoded to prevent unauthorized access or eavesdropping. Notice that the answer that you just need to extract from there is in bold. Encryption is a process that converts plain text, which is readable data, to ciphertext, which is unreadable data, using an algorithm and a security key. This ensures that even if an unauthorized party intercepts the data, they won't be able to read or understand it without the decryption key. 5.2.2. The wireless access point used by FairlyFit offers 256-bit encryption. 256 bits refers to the length of the key used to encrypt the data stream. Letter A. How many different combinations would a potential hacker need to try to break an encryption message? Write your answer as a power or exponent. This is the answer. Letter A. To calculate the number of possible combinations, we need to consider that each bit can have a value of either 0 or 1. With 256 bits, the total number of possible combinations is 2 to the power 256. Letter B. The encryption technique used by the wireless access point is symmetric encryption. Name and describe one feature of symmetric encryption which is a weakness of the encryption technique. 5.2.2. B. Key exchange. In symmetric encryption, the same secret key is used for both encryption and decryption. This means that the key must be shared between the sender and receiver, which creates a weakness. If an unauthorized party gains access to the key, they can decrypt the data, rendering the encryption useless. In other words, symmetric encryption relies on the secrecy of the key, and if the key is compromised, the entire encryption system is compromised. This makes key exchange and management a crucial challenge in symmetric encryption. Now then, let us discuss a few common types of encryption. The first one, symmetric key encryption. Symmetric key encryption is a type of encryption where the same secret key is used for both the encryption and decryption. Here are some key features and examples of symmetric key encryption. Features. Same key for encryption and decryption. The same secret key is used to encrypt and decrypt the data. Fast and efficient. Symmetric key encryption is generally faster and more efficient than asymmetric key encryption. The third point, secure key exchange required. The secret key must be securely exchanged between the sender and receiver. Examples, advanced encryption standard, a widely used symmetric key block cipher. DES, data encryption standard, an older symmetric key block cipher that has been largely replaced by AES. The third point, Blowfish, a symmetric key block cipher that is fast and efficient. Advantages, fast and efficient. Symmetric key encryption is generally faster and more efficient than asymmetric key encryption. The second point, simple to implement. Symmetric key encryption is relatively simple to implement and understand. Disadvantages. First point, key exchange problem. The secret key must be securely exchanged between the sender and receiver, which can be a challenge. The second point, key management. Symmetric key encryption requires careful key management to ensure the secrecy of the key. The second type of encryption, asymmetric key encryption, also known as public key encryption, is a type of encryption where a pair of keys are used. A public key for encryption and a private key for decryption. Features. Pair of keys. A public key is used for encryption, a private key is used for decryption. Second point, public key can be shared. The public key can be shared openly without compromising the security of the system. Third point, private key is secret. The private key must be kept secret to ensure the security of the system. Example, RSA, Reversed Shamir Edelman, a widely used asymmetric key encryption algorithm. Elliptic curve cryptography, an asymmetric key encryption algorithm that uses the mathematical properties of elliptic curves. Diffie-Hellman key exchange, an asymmetric key encryption algorithm that enables secure key exchange between two parties. Advantages. Secure key exchange. Asymmetric key encryption enables secure key exchange between two parties without actually exchanging the secret key. Digital signatures. Asymmetric encryption enables the creation of digital signatures, which can be used to authenticate the sender and ensure data integrity. Secure communication. Asymmetric key encryption enables secure communication between two parties without the need for a shared secret key. Disadvantages. First point, slower than symmetric key encryption. Asymmetric key encryption is generally slower than symmetric key encryption. Second point, key management. Asymmetric key encryption requires careful key management to ensure the secrecy of the private key. The third popular example, hashing. Hashing is a one-way encryption technique that transforms data into a fixed-size string of characters, known as a hash value or digest. Hashing is often used for data integrity. Hashing ensures the data has not been tampered with or altered during transmission or storage. Password storage. Hashing is used to store passwords securely, making it difficult for attackers to obtain the original password. Data deduplication. Hashing helps identify duplicate data, reducing storage needs. Characteristics: one-way function. Hashing is a one-way process, meaning it's easy to generate a hash value from data, but difficult to recreate the original data from the hash value. Second point, fixed size output. Hashing produces a fixed size output regardless of the input data size. Third point, deterministic. Hashing always produces the same output for a given input. Common hashing algorithms: SHA-256, secure hash algorithm 256, a widely used hashing algorithm that produces a 256-bit hash value. MD5, message digest algorithm 5, an older hashing algorithm that produces a 128-bit hash value. Blake 2, a fast and secure hashing algorithm that produces a variable size hash value. Advantages: fast and efficient. Hashing is generally fast and efficient, making it suitable for large datasets. Secure. Hashing is secure as it's difficult to recreate the original data from the hash value. Flexible. Hashing is used for various purposes, including data integrity, password storage, and data deduplication. Disadvantages. First point, hashing can produce collisions where two different inputs produce the same hash value. Second point, pre-image attacks. Hashing can be vulnerable to pre-image attacks where an attacker tries to find an input that produces a specific hash value. The fourth and final popular example I'm going to give, end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption, E2EE, is a method of secure communication where only the sender and intended recipient can read the data being exchanged. This may be recognized for those of you who are using WhatsApp. Here's a breakdown. Characteristics. Encryption at the source. Data is encrypted to the sender's device before it is transmitted. Second point, decryption at the destination. Data is decrypted only on the intended recipient's device. Third point, secure key exchange. Encryption keys are securely exchanged between the sender and recipient, ensuring only they can access the data. Disadvantages, key management. E2EE requires secure key management to ensure that encryption keys are properly generated, stored, and exchanged. Second point, interoperability. E2EE can be challenging to implement across different devices, platforms, and services. E2EE can be challenging to implement across different devices, platforms, and services. Examples: an open source E2EE protocol used by messaging apps like Signal and WhatsApp. Second point, TLS, transport layer security, a cryptographic protocol that provides E2EE for web communications, such as online banking and e-commerce. PGP, pretty good privacy, a data encryption and decryption software that provides E2EE for email communications. Letter C. There is an encryption technique which overcomes the weakness of symmetric encryption. What is this technique and how does it improve the encryption process? The answer here is asymmetric encryption, and it can be found here. Now let us move on. Letter D. List one disadvantage of the technique you explained in C above. The disadvantage is that it is slower than symmetric encryption. 5.3. The network diagram shows a device called a firewall. 5.3.1. What is the purpose of a firewall in a network? A firewall acts as a barrier between your network and the internet, controlling what traffic is allowed in and out to keep your network and data safe. Now, personally, I like to think of a firewall as this. 5.3.2. The owners of Fairly Fit have asked why it is necessary to have a firewall on their network. State and explains 2 reasons why their network should have a firewall, given that the network will be used by employees, gym users, and cafe customers. Now that we have defined what a firewall is, here is the answer to the question. The purpose: prevents hackers, malware, and other malicious entities from accessing the network and its resources. Point 2. It allows authorized accesses. It permits legitimate traffic to pass through, ensuring that authorized users and applications can use the network and its resources. Point 3. Protects against threats. The firewall detects and blocks malicious activities such as viruses, worms, Trojan horse, and denial of service attacks. Point 4. Hides internal IP addresses. The firewall masks internal IP addresses from external attackers, making it more difficult to identify and target specific devices on the network. Point 5. Log and audit traffic. It records and analyzes network traffic to identify potential security threats and improve incident response. Now then, the owners of Fairly Fit have asked why it is necessary to have a firewall on their network. State and explain 2 reasons why their network should have a firewall, given that the network will be used by employees, gym users, and cafe customers. But before that, here's a gist of one of the answers you can choose from. Now that might raise a question: what are network traffic? Network traffic refers to the flow of data packets across a network, including number 1, incoming traffic, data packet received by a network from external sources such as the internet. Number 2, outgoing traffic, data packets sent from a network to external destinations such as websites or servers. Number 3, internal traffic, data packet exchanged between devices within a network. Now that we understand what network traffics are, we can move on to answering question 5.3.2. Question 5.3.2. Reason 1. Protection of sensitive data. As a gym and cafe, Fairly Fit will likely store sensitive data on their network, such as employee information, customer data including payment details, and business financial records. A firewall will help protect this data from unauthorized access, which could lead to identity theft, financial loss, or reputational damage. With employees, gym users, and cafe customers accessing the network, the risk of a data breach increases. A firewall will act as a barrier to prevent hackers from exploiting vulnerabilities in the network and gaining access to sensitive data. Reason 2. Filtering of inbound and outbound data traffic. A firewall can filter incoming and outgoing data based on predetermined security rules, allowing for authorized traffic to pass through. This means that Fairly Fit can control what types of data are allowed to enter or leave the network. For example, they can block inbound traffic from known malicious IP addresses or websites, outbound traffic to suspicious or unauthorized websites, specific types of data such as file sharing or peer-to-peer traffic. By filtering data traffic, Fairly Fit can prevent unwanted malicious activity on their network, reducing the risk of cyber threats and maintaining a secure and reliable network for employees, gym users, and cafe customers. IEB's answer seems to be shorter and intuitive. The first reason they gave was gym users are going to be able to connect to the network. And the reason is this: there is a website connected to the network. Reason 2, the network is being used for customers to purchase goods. The example they gave was this: gym users connecting to the network could pose a risk. Or Fairly Fit might want to block certain traffic types. The second reason, the network is being used for customers to purchase goods. An example they gave: if customers are using the website to purchase goods, there needs to be a level of protection against hacking the store. Now then, let us move on. 5.4. Customers have requested more interaction opportunities with the website, allowing food to be ordered from the cafe. 5.4.1. Explain why a website will make use of Web 2.0 principles. It was created for this purpose. My word, what was I doing? For those of you who are concerned about the question paper asking probably all of the web principles, I have taken the liberty to explain all of them. The first one is Web 1.0. It was created and used between 1991 and 2004. Web 1.0 was the first generation of the World Wide Web. It was characterized by static websites. Websites were simple, static, and did not change much. They were like online brochures. One-way communication. Users could only read on websites but could not interact with them. Point 3. Limited user interaction. Users could only fill out forms or send emails, but couldn't engage with websites in real time. Point 4. No user-generated content. Users couldn't create or share content on website. Point 5. Centralized control. Website owners had complete control over the content and design of their site. Examples of Web 1.0 include early websites like Yahoo and Ultra Vista. Point 2. Online encyclopedias like Encyclopedia Britannica. Point 3. Online company websites. Now then, Web 2.0. Web 2.0 is the second generation of the World Wide Web. It is characterized by dynamic websites. Websites became more interactive and dynamic, with user-generated content and real-time updates. Point 2. Two-way communication. Users could interact with websites and each other through comments, forums, and social media. Point 3. User-generated content. Users could create and share content on websites like blog posts, videos, and photos. Point 4. Decentralized control. Users had more control over the content and design of websites through features like customization and feedback mechanisms. Examples of Web 2.0 include Point 1. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter. Point 2. Blogs and microblogs like WordPress and Tumblr. Point 3. Online communities like Reddit and Stack Overflow. Web 3.0. 2010 to the present. Web 3.0 is the third generation of the World Wide Web. It is characterized by Point 1. Semantic website. The web is becoming more intelligent and adaptive with AI and ML interaction. Point 2. Artificial intelligence. AI is used to improve search results, recommend content, and personalize experiences. Point 3. Natural language processing. NLP is enabling voice assistants and chatbots to understand human language. Point 4. Internet of Things. The web is being interacted with physical devices like smart home appliances and wearables. Point 5. Blockchain and decentralized data storage. Blockchain technology is enabling secure, decentralized data storage and transactions. Example of Web 3.0 includes virtual assistants like Siri, Alexa, and Google Assistant. Smart home devices like Amazon Echo and Google Home. Point 3. Blockchain-based platforms like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Web 4.0, which is emerging. Web 4.0 is the next generation of the World Wide Web. It is characterized by decentralized and autonomous systems. The web is becoming more decentralized with blockchains and peer-to-peer networking, edge computing and peer-to-peer networking. Data processing is being moved to the edge of the network, reducing latency and improving performance. Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, is being developed to enable more sophisticated AI applications. Extended reality, XR, and virtual reality, VR. The web is being integrated with XR and VR technologies, enabling immersive experiences. Point 5. Quantum computing and advanced cryptography. Quantum computing is being developed to enable faster and more secure data processing. Examples of Web 4.0 include decentralized social networks like Mastodon and Diaspora, blockchain-based platforms like Polkadot and Cosmos, XR and VR applications like Oculus and Vive. Here is a representation of the four. 5.4.2. List two types of information customers could post to the website after ordering food from the cafe. Type 1. 5.4.2. Answer. Reviews and ratings. Customers could share their experience with the food, services, and overall atmosphere of the cafe by posting a review and rating their visits. This could include comments on taste, quality, and presentation of the food, as well as the friendliness and attentiveness of the staff. An example: I ordered a vegan burger and it was amazing. The patty was so flavorful and the toppings were fresh. The services was also super friendly and attentive. 5 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I don't see a guy writing this comment. Type 2. Photos and feedback. Customers could share photos of their food and provide feedback on their order, such as suggestions for improvement or compliment on the presentation. This could help the cafe identify areas of improvement and also showcase their dishes to potential customers. Example: I just had the most delicious brunch at Fairly Fit. Here's a photo of my avocado toast. The only thing I would suggest is adding more cherry tomatoes on top. Otherwise, it was perfect. And then they post a photo of the avocado toast, which sounds rather disgusting, but we should not judge a book by its cover. 5.4.3. Customers could also use social media to communicate their experiences with Fairly Fit. Name 2 social media platforms which Fairly Fit could use for this purpose. 5.4.3. Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube, Yelp, Google My Business, TikTok, Pinterest, Reddit, LinkedIn, TripAdvisor. They could use any of these social media platforms. 5.4.4. Add-on features on a website are often made possible by using scripting. Letter A. Distinguish between server-side and client-side scripting. Scripting is indeed a crucial aspect of adding interactive features to a website. Here is a detailed brief on the two. Server-side scripting. Server-side scripting refers to the execution of scripts on the web server rather than on the client's web browser. The server processes the script and sends the resulting HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code to the client's browser. Server-side scripting is typically used for database interactions, which is, for example, storing and retrieving user data. Point 2. Authentication and authorization. Point 3. Dynamic content generation. For example, generating pages based on user input. Point 4. Server-side validation and error handling. Examples of server-side scripting languages include HPH, Ruby, Python, and Java. Client-side scripting. Client-side scripting, on the other hand, refers to the execution of scripts on the client's web browser rather than on the web server. The browser processes the scripts and updates the web page accordingly. Client-side scripting is typically used for, point 1, dynamic user interface updates, for example, animations and effects. Point 2, form validation and error handling. Point 3, interactive elements, such as drop-down menus and accordions. Point 4, client-side calculations and data processing. Examples of client-side scripting languages include JavaScript, TypeScript, CoffeeScript. The key differences between server-side and client-side scripting are these. Execution location. Server-side scripts run on the web server, while client-side scripts run on the client's browser. Point 2. Data access. Server-side scripts have direct access to the database and server resources, while client-side scripts have limited access to server resources and rely on APIs or server-side scripts for data retrieval. Point 3. Security. Server-side scripts are generally more secure, as they can validate and sanitize user input before processing it, whereas client-side scripting rely on the client's browser to execute the script, which can be vulnerable to security threats. Using a combination of server-side and client-side scripting, developers can create dynamic, interactive, and secure web applications that provide a rich user experience. Finally, letter B. List 2 website features which make use of client-side scripting that will be useful to users when ordering food from the cafe. Letter B. Interactive menu with real-time pricing and nutrition information. Using client-side scripting, for example, JavaScript, the website can create an interactive menu that allows users to customize their orders and see real-time updates on pricing and nutrition info. For example, when a user selects a menu item, the script can update the price and nutrition information in real time, taking into account any customizations or add-ons. Another example, a user selects a sandwich and adds extra cheese. The scripts update the price and nutrition information to reflect the change. IEB's answer gave Feature 1, a calculator to add up values for items purchased. Feature 2, login screen, entering username and password for validation. Section D, Social Implications, Question 6. Read the following text about security concerns over the app TikTok. This text has been paraphrased from the cited sources. You should then answer the questions that follow. Universities in at least 10 US states have taken steps to ban the use of the popular app TikTok on campus Wi-Fi networks. The ban affects both staff and students. Several US states and the federal government have also banned TikTok from government-owned devices due to concerns about the app's data collection and the Chinese company that owns it. Similar bans have been put in place in India and at the European Commission due to security concerns. The app collects a large amount of user data, which could potentially offer sensitive information to the Chinese government. The head of the FBI has also expressed concerns about the app's data collection and its potential to spread Chinese state-influenced operations. ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, has not been transparent about how data flows between the US and China operations, raising concerns about its practices. Last month, a major US magazine reported that TikTok's parent company tracked journalists' IP addresses to identify which employees were sharing unauthorized information. However, TikTok remains popular globally, with over 1 billion users, and the ban in the US at university level are unlikely to impact the app's popularity significantly. However, a greater ban, for example, countrywide, would substantially impact US users. Question 6.1. Cybersecurity is the term used to describe all methods individuals and companies use to reduce the risk of an attack that will result in data loss. Name one hardware or software application that reduces the risk of a cyber attack. I would suggest that you use the memo's answer for this particular question. It is not my intention to complicate this answer, as the answer is easy. I just want to give as much examples as possible. The memo's answer states that you could use either one of these three correct answers: antivirus software, anti-malware software, local firewall, or Windows firewall. Now, the answers that I gave could be added to the ones that has been listed in the memo. So let's take a look. Question 6.1. Hardware devices that you could give are firewalls. Network firewalls such as Cisco ASA or Juniper SRX that blocks unauthorized access to a network. Encryption devices. Hardware encryption devices like HSMs, which stands for hardware security modules, that securely stores and manages encryption keys. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, so just take a quick look after pausing and we'll move on. Now, software applications. Antivirus software. Software like Norton Antivirus, McAfee Antivirus, or Kaspersky Antivirus that detects and removes malware. Firewall softwares. Softwares like Windows Defender Firewall or Glasswire Firewall that blocks unauthorized access to a computer or network. Now take a look at the rest and let's move on to question 6.2. Question 6.2. Give 2 reasons why you believe TikTok has become such a successful and popular social media platform. Reason 1. IEB's answer is pretty superior to what I could find in the fact that it encapsulates everything that can be shortened to that extent. Let us look at it. Reason 1. Library of music soundtracks to use without concerns over copyright. Easy to create video content, videos are short, videos are more engaging than text, as in Twitter. Reason 2. Algorithms which promote content, algorithms which provide similar content to users, popular during COVID. Now then, 6.3. List 3 types of information which TikTok might collect and possibly be made available to the Chinese government. You should briefly explain how each of these might be useful. The answers. Information type. The information type could be location data. Location data. TikTok might collect location data from users' device, including IP addresses, GPS coordinates, and Wi-Fi network information. Information type number 2. Biometric data. TikTok may collect biometric data such as facial recognition information, voice print, and fingerprint through its various features and integrations. This data could be used to identify and track individuals, even if they use pseudonyms or try to remain anonymous. Create detailed profile of users, including their interests, behaviors, and demographics. Enhance surveillance and monitoring capabilities, including those used for law enforcement or national security purposes. Information type number 3, content and communication data. I didn't make this one bold. TikTok may collect data on the content that users create, share, and interact with, including text, images, videos, and audio. This data could be used to monitor and analyze public opinion and sentiment, including attitudes towards the Chinese government or sensitive topics. This data could be used to identify and suppress dissenting voices or opposing movements. This data could also be used to inform targeted propaganda and disinformation campaigns, including those aimed at influencing public opinions or shaping the narrative around sensitive issues. The answer in IEB's memo is as follows. Information type, location of user. A foreign government can use this to determine movement of citizens in various countries, can create age profiles of users in order to target different age groups if necessary. Information type. What other apps are used? Apps can detect what other apps are currently being used or installed on a device, useful to profile users. Information type. What website visited? X can detect browser activity to likewise profile user and potentially targets them. 6.4. The article states that bans on campus network are unlikely to make the app less popular. Give 2 ways a university student might still be able to use the app while on campus when TikTok is banned. These are the only 2 possible answers that can satisfy this question. The answer, 6.4, mobile data. Students can use their personal mobile data plans to access TikTok on their smartphones, bypassing the campus network restrictions. This means that they can still access the app, create and share content, and interact with other users on TikTok while on campus. The second way is that they could use virtual private networks, VPN. Students can use a VPN to mask their IP address and make it appear as if they were accessing TikTok from a different location, outside the campus network. This would allow them to bypass the campus network restriction and access TikTok, even if it's blocked on the university's network. These are the only 2 possible answers that can satisfy this question. Now, I'm not just asking you to memorize this on the basis that you'll need this on an exam. Rather, I'm asking you to memorize this just in case your university pulls a stunt like this. Let's move on. 6.5. A student who uses TikTok has stated that they don't believe that their personal information is at risk, as they merely use the app as a non-registered user, without creating an account. Do you believe this to be true? Justify your answer with 1 reason. The answer there is obviously no. No. Reason being, TikTok collects data from all users, including non-registered ones. This can include device information, IP addresses, browsing history, and location data. Second reason, tracking technologies. The app uses cookies and other tracking technologies to monitor user behavior. This means that even without an account, TikTok can track what videos you watch, how long you watch them, and your interactions with the app. Device fingerprinting. Even without an account, TikTok can still collect device-specific information, such as the device's IP address, browsing type, screen resolution, and operating system. This information can be used to create a unique identifier for the device, which can be used to track the user's activities. The fourth one is cookie tracking. TikTok, like many other websites and apps, uses cookies to track user behaviors and preferences. Cookies can be stored on the device even if the user doesn't create an account, and they can be used to identify the user's device and track their activities. 6.6. Fairly Fit is considering creating its own app for gym and cafe customers. Suggest to the owners 2 methods to ensure that their customers' data used by the app is secure. Tip number 1. Method 1. Implement end-to-end encryption. Now, before this, check IEB's answers. They're easy to memorize. I'm just explaining these. Implementing end-to-end encryption. Fairly Fit can implement end-to-end encryption for all data transmitted between the apps and their servers. This means that any data sent by the customer, such as login credentials, personal details, or payment information, is encrypted on the customer's device and can only be decrypted by the intended recipient, i.e., which is Fairly Fit server. To implement end-to-end encryption, Fairly Fit can use secure communication protocols such as HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or TLS, Transport Layer Security. Method 2. Regular security audits and updates. Conducting regular security audits can help identify and fix vulnerabilities in the app. This includes code reviews, penetration testing, and vulnerability assessments. Additionally, keeping the app and its underlying systems up to date with the latest security patches and updates is essential. This helps protect against known vulnerabilities and ensures that the app remains secure against emerging threats. Section E. Data and Information Management and Solution Development. Question 7. To manage their day-to-day business operations, Fairly Fit have many IT solutions using both database and OPP-designed applications. 7.1. Data stored or transmitted across a network can often be subject to threats. Consider a database which Fairly Fit use to store details of their gym and cafe customers. 7.1.1. Explain what each of the following threats to quality data means and give a possible example of how customer data could be affected in the Fairly Fit database. The first one, outdated data. Definition. Outdated data refers to data that is no longer accurate or relevant due to passage of time. Now this should be highlighted. That's the definition. This can occur where data is not regularly updated or maintained, leading to a mismatch between the current situation and the data stored in the database. An example, a customer's membership status is listed as active in the database, but they actually cancelled their membership 6 months ago. If the data is not updated, Fairly Fit may continue to send them promotional offers and membership renewals, leading to confusion and potential loss of trust or annoyance. IEB's memo's answer gives this definition. This is what data stored in the database is no longer valid. The actual field values have been changed but have not been updated in the database. Example, customer has changed their phone number, but this has not been changed in the database. The value of the phone number in the field is out of date. Invalidated data. Invalidated data refers to data that fails to meet the required criteria or standard for its intended use. In the context of Fairly Fit's database, which stores details of their gym and cafe customers, invalidated data could manifest in incorrect formatting. Suppose the database requires phone numbers to be stored in a specific format. For example, 123 in brackets and then 456, then dash 7890, close brackets. If a customer enters their phone number as 12345678890 without the required formatting, this invalidated data might cause issues in communication or system integrations. The second point is incomplete data. If a customer profile is missing crucial information such as required email addresses or membership start date, it could lead to problems with customer management, such as difficulties in sending promotional emails or tracking membership renewal date. The third point is entry data errors. If a user enters non-numeric value where the system expects a numeric input, for example, entering a non-applicable for a membership ID status, this could disrupt queries and reports that rely on numeric values. Now, IEB's answer on invalidated data states that this is what data is being entered into the database, but the data which is entered does not pass a validation process. For example, a customer's ID number is being entered and it does not contain the correct number of digits. Customers using the Fairly Fit website need to first log in. A hacker is attempting to log into the website and steal customer information. All information about every customer is stored in a table called TBL customers. The hacker has made up a customer ID, Harry0209, and type in the following line into customer ID field on the web page. Select star from TBL customers, where customer ID equal Harry0209 or 1 is equal to 1, semicolon. Letter A. Entering a SQL statement into a web page field is a malicious SQL technique. What name is given to this technique? The answer there is SQL injection. Letter B. Explain what this line of SQL code will achieve. The answer is this. The SQL statement select star, which means everything, so selects everything from TBL customers, where customer ID is equal to Harry0209 or 1 is equal to 1. This is designed to bypass the login check. The condition or 1 is equal to 1 always evaluates to true, which means the query will return all records from the TBL table, potentially exposing all customer information. Original query. The query aims to select all columns, which is the star, from the TBL customer table where the customer ID matches Harry0209. The specific technique used here is called a Boolean-based blind SQL injection attack and is a clever trick used by the hacker to bypass the authentication mechanism. By making the SQL query always true, the hacker can access all customer data without needing to know a valid customer ID. Now, I implore you, you will find a link in the description of this video which will take you to the most popular video on this topic, SQL injections. Once you watch the extremely engaging video by Network Chuck, you will finally understand how SQL injections work. And you'll be given an exercise at the end of that video, which again, I suggest you try out. The exercise was initially suggested by him, which was tried by yours truly. And I assure you, I feel proud after taking that exercise. Because of this, I suggest that you take the exercise as well to improve your understanding of SQL injections and do it yourself. That way, you will understand just how thrilling IT can be. In fact, this is me signing out on answering the rest of question 7.1.2, because every single thing is answered in that video. Just make sure you come back though, okay? Now then, 7.2. IP addresses are stored in a fixed number of bits. An IPv6 IP address consists of 8 16-bit fields, each separated by a colon. Each 16-bit field has 4 hexadecimal characters, each using 4 bits. Here is an example of a valid IPv6 address. 2001:000:00:FF00:00:0042:8329. Alternating 16-bit fields are shown in different colors for clarity. Now, before we start 7.2.1, this could potentially raise the question to some of you curious but lazy folks out there. What happened to all the previous version of IP, and why are we only using IPv4 and IPv6? What happened to IPv1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9? Here is your answer. IPv1. IPv1 was not publicly used. The first version of IP, which was introduced in 1974, had an 8-bit address size. It was not publicly used and was very soon replaced by IPv2. IPv2 was experimental. It was introduced in 1977. IPv2 had a 16-bit address size. It was experimental and never widely adopted. IPv3. IPv3 was not publicly used. IPv3 was skipped to avoid confusion with the Internet Protocol version 3, IPv3, used in the Internet Stream Protocol, ST. IPv4, current but being phased out. Introduced in 1983. IPv4 has a 32-bit address size, allowing for approximately 4.3 billion unique addresses. It is still widely used, but is being replaced by IPv6 due to address exhaustion. Now, IPv5 was experimental. It was introduced in 1979. IPv5 was an experimental protocol that used a 32-bit address size. It was never widely adopted and was eventually replaced with IPv6. Now, IPv6, which is current. IPv6 has a 128-bit address size, allowing for an almost unlimited amount of unique addresses. It is designed to replace IPv4 and provide a much larger address space. IPv7, not assigned. There is no IPv7 protocol. IPv8, not assigned. There is no IPv8 protocol. Now, IPv9. IPv9 is experimental. It was introduced in 1992. IPv9 is an experimental protocol that uses a 64-bit address size. It is not widely adopted and is not intended to replace IPv6. Note that only IPv4 and IPv6 are widely used and recognized as the standard Internet protocols. The others were either experimental, never adopted, or skipped to avoid confusion. Because these are highlighted, we shall now go into the intricate details of these two addresses. IPv4, Internet Protocol version 4. Address format. IPv4 addresses are 32 bits long, typically represented as 4 decimal numbers separated by periods, dotted decimal format. Each number ranges from 0 to 255. For example, 129.168.1.1. Structure. 32-bit addresses. This gives a total of 2 to the power of 36 unique addresses, which is about 4.3 billion. Subnetting. IPv4 addresses are often divided into network and host portions using subnet masks. Limitations. Address exhaustion. The rapid growth of the internet has led to IPv4 address exhaustion, where the available addresses are not enough for the increasing number of devices. Special address ranges. Private addresses. For use within local networks, for example, 129.168.0.0. This can be ranged to 129.168.255.255. Loopback addresses. 127.0.0.1 for internal testing on local machine. Next, IPv6. Address format. IPv6 addresses are 128 bits long, represented as 8 groups of 4 hexadecimal digits separated by colons. For example, I'm not going to say that. Structure, 128-bit address. This provides a vastly larger address space of 2 to the power 128, about 340 undecillion unique addresses. The second point, simplified header. IPv6 has a simplified packet header compared to IPv4, which improves routing efficiency. Third point, features. Address auto-configuration. Devices can automatically configure their own IP addresses using stateless address auto-configuration, SLAAC. Improve security. IPv6 includes IPsec, Internet Protocol Security, as a fundamental part of the protocol suite, providing better security for communications. No need for NAT. With a larger address base, IPv6 eliminates the need for network address translation, which was commonly used in IPv4 to manage address shortages. Address types. Unicast identifies a single network interface. Multicast identifies multiple interfaces, a group of devices. Anycast identifies a group of interfaces but sends data to the nearest one. Address notations. Zero compression. Consecutive sections of zeros can be replaced with colon. For example, I am not going to say that. Next one. Leading zeros. Leading zeros can be omitted within each 16-bit block. For example, you are given the example. Transition and coexistence. Since IPv4 and IPv6 are not directly compatible, transitions from IPv4 to IPv6 has been a gradual process involving dual stack, running both IPv4 and IPv6 protocols simultaneously. Tunneling, encapsulating IPv6 packets within IPv4 packets to traverse IPv4-only networks. Translation, converting between IPv4 and IPv6 addresses where necessary. IPv6 adaptation is increasing as the need for more addresses grows and as the limitation of IPv4 become more pronounced. Now then, question 7.2.1. How many bits will be required to store one IPv6 address? The answer is quite simple. 16 times 8. Because there are 8 16-bit fields, we multiply 16 by 8, which gives us 128 bits. 7.2.2. IPv6 addresses are long and difficult to work with, so several techniques as we have discussed, are being used to shorten an IPv6 address without losing its uniqueness. One way of achieving this is by removing leading zeros, ensuring at least one character remains in each of the 16-bit fields. Applying this technique to the IP address shown above, we would end up with the following address: 20.0.0.0.0.ff00.ff00.42.8329. Now, considering the following IPv6 address, I'm not gonna read that. Once again, the alternating 16-bit fields have been shown in different colors for clarity. A. Write out this IPv6 address in shortened format using the technique described above. The first two fields are shown for you. The answer is this. Letter B. Assume that because we have a shorter IPv6 address, we can use fewer bits to store the address. Use the table or grid below to work out how many bits will be needed to store the shortened IPv6 address from A above. The first two blocks have been filled in for you. Now pause the video and try to solve this answer using logic. Here is the answer. Letter C. The shortening technique used above suppresses leading zeros. Why is it not possible to remove trailing zeros as well? Use the field FF00 to assist in answering this question if necessary. Create an answer. Question 8. 8.1. One of the programs used by FairlyFit is used to store and work with details of various food items which are sold in the cafe. The program makes use of objects to hold relevant information and is made up of many different classes. The stock class. This class will be used to instantiate stock objects. One object for each stock item bought for sale in the cafe. Each stock object will have the following fields: description, which holds string values; stock quantity, which holds integer values; cost price, which holds real values. Real can be thought of in this case as numbers which can also hold numbers with decimal in it. Now, because this is a price, using real as the data field makes sense because prices have decimal numbers within. Now, selling price, which takes real. And finally, healthy food, which is a boolean. Boolean can hold two values, either true or false, yes or no. These fields should only be accessible from the stock class. Additionally, the class will need to have the following class fields. Markup, which takes integer values. This value is fixed at 60. Total stock, which takes integer values. This represents the total number of all food items in stock. Total cost, which takes real values. This represents the total price of all the food items in stock. Total sales, which takes real values. This represents the total value of all food items sold. Except for the markup field, these fields should only be accessible from the stock class. Now then, before we move on, check the video description, and in it you will find links to videos that explains every single thing that a total beginner needs to know about UML, or those who aren't technically beginners and still need to revise. I cannot emphasize it enough. Okay, now let us move on. Complete the following class diagram for the stock class. Show the declaration of additional fields as well as the following methods. Before we move on, let us discuss what we're looking at. This is called a UML, defined as Unified Modeling Language. Now, this unified modeling language is how programmers can create real-life programs based on this simplistic depiction of what the program should have. Stock class. Parameter is constructor method accepting the following parameters: D, which takes in string, SQ, which takes in integer, CP, which takes in real, SP, which takes in real, and HF, which takes in a boolean. Accessor methods for the healthy food and stock quantity fields. Mutator method for the description field, which will accept a string parameter, which is called DIN. Accessor method for the total stock field. And finally, a toString method to combine the various field of a stock object into a single string. Now, we shall discuss for a moment and try to remember what the video link described for us about these terms. The first thing that we'll look at is the incomplete diagram. We see that in the field section, there is a minus sign. According to the knowledge that we now have, we will recognize that the minus sign represents private. Minus means private. So here we see that the description field has a private visibility modifier. It accepts a string. The stock quantity is also private, which accepts integer. The cost price is also private, the selling price private, the healthy food private, which accepts real, and boolean in that order. We are told that except for the markup field, the rest of the fields should only be accessible from the stock class. We have to understand what a markup is for us to answer this particular part of the question. So according to the dictionary, a markup is the percentage or amount by which a seller hikes up his buy-in price when determining his selling price. So it is represented as a percentage. So we know that every single object that is going to be sold will have a 60% increase in price, which acts as the seller's profit. Because of this, we now understand that every single object will share this 60%. Because of that, the markup field will be static. Static variables are always represented as underlined. Except for the markup field, these fields should only be accessible from the stock class. This information tells us that the markup field is public. So now that we've written that, the price of each of variables like veggie burger, fish sticks, salad, smoothies, or protein shakes will have a 60% profit that will go into the business. So that becomes a static object. We underlined it and it indicates static. Take a look at the keyword fixed. That will be the only explicit information that will tell you that the variable is a final, meaning that it is constant. Therefore, the markup should be written in all caps. So the rest are going to be private because, as stated, only the markup field should be accessible outside of the stock class. So we put a minus sign. We see that the total stock is a representation of every single object, which is veggie burger, fish sticks, salads, blah blah, and every other thing that fairly fit will sell. So now total stock would represent the total number of all the food items in stock, meaning that it is a shared number. Therefore, we make this static. And it accepts an integer value. Next is total stock. So long as you see all food items, just know that it's going to be static. So we go to total cost, which takes in real values, and finally total sales, which takes real values. Next, the methods. We're asked to create a parameterized constructor method accepting the following parameters: the letter D, which takes in a string, the letters SQ, which takes in an integer, CP, which takes in real, SP, which takes in real, and finally HF, which takes in a Boolean value. Constructor methods are always public, therefore we represent this using the plus sign. Minus sign represents private, plus sign represents public. Now, we start by writing constructor. We are told that the letter D, which represents description, takes in a string value. Therefore, we type D, then colon, then string. Next is SQ, which takes in an integer value. Next is CP, which takes in a real value. Next is SP, which takes in a real value. And finally is HF, which takes in a Boolean data type. Next point, we're asked to create accessor methods for the healthy food and stock quantity fields. Accessor methods are also always public. Therefore, we start by writing plus. Afterwards, we must understand that accessor methods are getters. They get, therefore, we start by writing get before the method name. So we type get healthy food. Getters always take in no parameters and they return the data type which was stated in the field section. As we can see here, healthy food takes in a Boolean, therefore the method to get healthy food must return a Boolean value as well. We're asked to create another getter called stock quantity. So we start with get stock quantity. It takes in no parameter and returns exactly what it took in the field section. Stock quantity in the field section took in an integer, therefore it returns an integer value. Next point, we're asked to create a mutator method for the description field, which will accept a parameter din and takes in a string value. Mutator methods always start with the keyword set, and mutator methods are also always public. Therefore, we write plus, then we type set, and then the mutator name, which is description. Then we are told that we are to call it din, and that this takes in the data type string. Mutator methods always return nothing. We represent nothing by typing the word void. The direct definition of void is containing nothing, empty, not occupied, or filled. In other words, they return nothing in the language of coding. Whatever comes after a method that isn't the constructor is what it returns. In the first case of healthy food, it returns a Boolean that is after the colon. The second case, in stock quantity, it returns an integer. And the last case, which we are in right now, in description, is that it returns nothing, which is represented by void. Next point, we're asked to create an accessor method for the total stock field. Accessor methods are always public, and we start with get. Now this total stock must also return an integer as stated in the field value, as you can see here, integer. Therefore, because it takes in an integer there, it must return an integer in the method. But we're not done. We see that it is static when we initialized it in the field section. In order for it to be compatible and in order for it to work in the actual codes, this method must also be static. Therefore, we underline it. Now it is correct. We move on. Finally, we're asked to create a toString method to combine the various field of a stock object into a single string. We type toString, then we set it to return a string. And there we have it. We're done. In order for you to have been able to answer this particular part of the question, you need to have been familiar with these concepts. Some of you may be curious about how this UML diagram might be able to help a programmer create an actual program based on this representation. So for those of you who are curious, this is how it would look like. As you can see, the first thing is what were provided before we started answering the question. A private string method which is called description, a private integer method which is called stock quantity, and so on. Next are the static methods which are shared by every single object that we create. The lentil salad, the power oats, the protein wrap, and the prego snack will all share these variables. Therefore, we made it static by underlining it, and you can see here that the programmer understood that it was static because it was underlined and named it static as so. The next thing was the constructor method. As we can see here, the constructor isn't technically named constructor, but it is given the exact name as the name of the class. When typing out the program in real life, the constructor method would always be the same name as the class. Therefore, the constructor in this case is called stock. Inside the parameter of the constructor, these brackets, we see that the data type comes first before the name of the data type, which is description, which we were given to write as D. Next is the data type for the stock quantity, which we were given as integer. Next is double for cost price, double for selling price, and finally the Boolean data type, which was named healthy food. Next, we set the fields equal to what was inserted inside the constructor. So as you can see here, the description which was made private here was set equal to what was put into the constructor, which is D. So the description is equal to D, the stock quantity is equal to SQ, the cost price CP, selling price SP, and finally healthy food HP. Now some of you may have been curious about how the total stock and the total cost would have been calculated after each object was made. This is how. Whenever each object is made, whatever value was inside the total stock would add to the stock quantity of the object that was newly created. In the same way, the total cost would add to the cost price multiplied by the stock quantity of the newly created object. That way, the total cost and the stock quantity would always be updated whenever a new stock was created. Next are the getters and the setters. As we can see here, the plus sign was put as public when was coded. Its return type was Boolean and it took no parameters. As we can see here, it returns the healthy food status of the object. The next one was the public. The next one was the stock quantity, which was set as public and it returned an integer value. The next one was the mutator method for the description. As we can see, it is called setDescription. It is set as a public visibility and it returns nothing. What it does is that it updates this description into what was put into the parameter here in DIN. Finally, it is the accessor method for the getTotalStock. Because the field value was set to a static, the public method must also be static. Therefore, as you can see, it has a public visibility, it is static, its return type is an integer as stated by the field value, and it returns a total stock, which was an integer value as well. This means that whenever we run this program and we call on this method, we won't get an error message because both the field and the method was set to static. The last one was the toString method. Whenever we call in the toString method, the first thing is that we override it and then we create the toString method. As was stated, we're supposed to create a toString method to combine the various fields of a stock object into a single string. So whenever this toString method is called, it will return the description, the stock quantity, the cost price, the selling price, and the healthy food of that particular object. So this is how the executable program would look like. As you can see, Fairly Fit's healthy food store is called Freshly Fixed. The first product or object that we're going to put into the program is lentil salad. The stock quantity has been set to 8. The cost price has been set to 5 Rand 50 cents. The selling price has been set to 8 Rand 80 cents. And finally, the healthy food status is yes. Once we click add stock, we'll get an error. From this, we see that the validation rule works. It says invalid input. Please enter valid numbers. Okay. The problem here was that we put a comma instead of a period sign. So let us change it to a period sign. Then once we add stock, take a look at the records section. Now let us discuss what this button does. As you can see, this button calls on the toString method. And we remember from the instructions that the toString method was supposed to combine the various fields of a stock object into a single string. And that's exactly what it did here. Next, let us add another product whose healthy food status is no. We will choose Prego steak. The stock quantity has been set to 15. The cost price has been set to 12 Rand 80 cents. The selling price has been set to 20 Rand 48 cents. And we will not tick this checkbox. Let us add stock. As you can see, it is working perfectly. Now, the question lies, what does the View Total Stock button do? Let us click it and find out. From here, we see that the View Total Stock calls on the Get Total Stock method. It adds the total stock of all of the products in the program to give us the total stock that is currently available in the store. Let us try this again. Let's see if it will still work. Let us add the product Power Oats. The stock quantity has been set to 15. The cost price has been set to 4. The selling price has been set to 6 Rand 40 cents. And the healthy food status has been set to yes. Let us click add stock. We click it, and as we can see, until we click the View Total Stock button, this number will not change. Now let us click it. As you can see, the number correctly added, 15 plus 15 plus 8 gives us 38, which is true. Now, let us look at the code behind the buttons. We can see that the code behind the add button is wrapped around a try and a catch statement. This is for validation. Now let us take a look at the code inside the try statement. As we can see, the first thing that we did was created variables to collect the data which was in each specific text field. From here, we can see that the variable for description has been set to a string data type, and it collects data directly from the description text field. The next one is quantity, which collects the data as an integer data type. The one after that is cost price and selling price, which both collects it as a double data type. The last and final one is healthy food, which collects it as a Boolean data type. As we can see from the integer, double, and double data type, there is a conversion. The conversion is because every text field stores data as a string data type. Therefore, we have to convert it from a string data type to its respective data type, which in the case of quantity was integer. Therefore, we use integer.parseInt. And for the cost price and the selling price were double. Therefore, we use double.parseDouble. The healthy food, on the other hand, was just a checkbox. Therefore, we did not need to convert anything. From there, we see the practical usage of the stock class. We see that we did not create a new code altogether, but instead we utilized the stock class from what we had created. We called the stock object stock item, and we immediately called the constructor. After calling the constructor, we inserted the variables which we created, respectively description, quantity, cost price, selling price, and finally healthy food. As we can see from this line of code, the text area which we previously saw called the toString method, then added an empty line to separate each object. Afterwards, it cleared the fields in the text fields. That is the code behind the add button. Now, let us take a look at the code behind the view button. The view total stock button only has a single line of code in it. As we can see, what this does is that it directly accesses the getTotalStock method. Then afterward, it converts it into an integer and sets it to the label which we saw in orange. Before we move on, it is important that we take a quick look at the coded example of the private keyword. This will help us understand the importance and reason why we make things private in codes. I've created an empty folder and named it private example. Here we're going to create a new class and we'll call it bank account. The first thing that we're going to do is to create an instance variable called balance. We will make this a private data type which holds real numbers. We're going to type private double and then we name it balance. Double is the coded property of real numbers in Java. Next, we're going to create a constructor. Constructors, as we said, are always public. So we're going to name this constructor the same name as the class, as was stated. Every constructor must have the same name as the class. Therefore, we type public bank account. Now this constructor must accept a double data type. And we're going to call what it accepts initial balance. Here, we're going to set the instance variable equal to the value of the constructor. So we're going to type balance equal to initial balance. Close curly braces. Next, we create a getter for the instance variable. We type public double and then we name it getBalance. It takes no parameters and it returns balance. Next, we create another method called deposit. This method is similar to the mutator method. It does not return anything. Therefore, we type public void to indicate what it returns, which in this case will be nothing. Then we type the name, which we call deposit. This method must accept real numbers. We use the double data type. Then we call it amount. The first thing that it must do is check if the amount is greater than 0. Because you cannot deposit a negative amount, so we use an if statement. If amount is greater than 0, then it must run this code. Balance is plus equal to amount. This is a short form of writing balance is equal to balance plus amount. All you have to do is write balance is plus equal to the amount. This works the same way. What we're trying to do here is set whatever value was inside balance and add it to the amount which was put in this method. If the if statement is false, nothing will happen, so we can just leave it as is. The next thing we're going to create is a method called withdraw. We'll make this a public method and it returns nothing, therefore we use the keyword void. We name it withdraw. This method will accept a real number, therefore we use the double data type. And we call it amount as well. The first thing that this method will do is that it will check whether the amount you're trying to withdraw is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, then it will check whether the amount that you're trying to withdraw is greater than what you have in your bank account, because you cannot withdraw more than what you have. So we use the if statement. If amount is greater than 0 and the amount is smaller or equal to your balance, then it will run the code. It will withdraw the amount that you put in the method from the balance that you have in your bank account. So balance minus equal to amount. And there we have it, a short and simple code. Now then, let us use this to discuss the essence of why we make things private. The first reason is data integrity and control. First point. Variables are kept or made private because it helps to prevent unintended changes. By keeping variables private, you prevent other parts of the program from directly modifying them. This ensures that the object state cannot be changed in unexpected or inappropriate ways. The second point, controlled access. Private variables can only be accessed or modified through methods like getters and setters. These methods can include checks and validation to ensure that any changes to the variable are valid and maintain the integrity of the object. The second reason is abstractation. Hiding implementation details. Keeping variables private hides the internal workings of a class from the outside world. This is part of the abstractation principle, where you expose only what is necessary and hide the complexity. The second point, simplified interface. By using public methods to interact with the object, you provide a simpler and more intuitive interface. The users of the class don't need to know how the data is stored or managed. They just need to know how to interact with it. For example, we as grade 12 learners don't necessarily need to see the internal workings of the codes double, boolean, integer, string, and so on. It will be overwhelming, unnecessary, and simply preposterous. How on earth do you expect us as grade 12 learners to know all of this? One might ask. But for those of you who truly are interested, you can hold Ctrl button and click on the data type once you've typed it, and you will see the intricate details that makes up that particular data type. However, it is simply unnecessary to learn those things as of yet, unless you want to. It's completely your choice. But to those of us who are completely focused on passing our exams and keeping our eyes focused on the problems that has been set before us, knowing the intricate details of these data types is simply unnecessary. And now we can appreciate this second point, simplified interface. We simply do not need to know the complexities as of yet. The third reason, flexibility for future changes. First point, easier maintenance. If variables are private, you can change the internal implementation without affecting other parts of the program. For example, you might decide to change how a variable is calculated or stored, and as long as the public methods remain the same, the rest of the code won't need to be changed. This part is very much useful for those of you who are doing pets. Believe me. Okay, the next point, encapsulation of business logic. You can include business logic within the class methods to enforce rules or constraints. For example, if you have a set price method, you can ensure that the price is never set to a negative value. The next reason is security. First point, protect sensitive data. If an object holds sensitive data like passwords, user data, etc., keeping the data private ensures that it isn't accidentally exposed or altered by unauthorized parts of the program. The next reason is encapsulation. Encapsulated object state. Encapsulation is the practice of bundling the data, aka variables, and methods that operate on the data into a single unit or class. By keeping variables private, you ensure that the only way to interact with the data is through the methods you define, which helps maintain the integrity of the object. Take a look at this. In our coded example, we made balance private. By keeping balance private, you prevent it from being directly modified by outside code. For example, setting it to an invalid value like balance is equal to negative 1,000. The if statements that we put within the mutator methods helped us with this. The second point, controlled access. Access to the balance is controlled through the getBalance, deposit, and withdraw methods, which ensure that the account behaves correctly. For example, you can't withdraw more than the balance. In summary, keeping variables private is about protecting the internal state of an object, enforcing rules and constraints, and provide a clear and stable interface for interacting with the object. This leads to more reliable, maintainable, and secure code. This private example was made possible by ChatGPT. Next, we're going to discuss the final keyword. This is represented in all caps in the UML. In Java, the final keyword is to define constants and to ensure that a variable, method, or class cannot be modified after it has been assigned or declared. Final variables. The first point. Final variables are immutable values. When you declare a variable as final, It means that once it's initialized, it cannot be changed. This is often used for constraints. A ChatGPT example. We have our public class called employee. As we can see in the code, it has private, which is the visibility modifier, final, integer, and it is called employee ID. Then we have public, which is its visibility modifier, static, which indicates that it is a shared value, final, which indicates that it is immutable, and finally double, its data type. It has been named starting pay rate, which is equal to 15. In this example, first point, each employee object has a unique employee ID, which is assigned when the object is created and cannot be changed afterwards. Second point, starting pay rate. This is a constant shared by all instances of the employee class and cannot be modified. Final methods. First point, prevent method overriding. When a method is declared as final, it cannot be overridden by subclasses. This is useful when you want to ensure that the behavior defined in a method cannot be altered by any subclass. Another example of the employee class has been given. Public, its visibility modifier. Final, it means that it is immutable. Void, it means that it returns nothing. Display employee info, which is the name of the method. It accepts nothing. This is an example of a final method. Next, final classes. Preventing inheritance. When a class is declared as final, it cannot be subclassed. This is useful when you want to ensure that a class's implementation is complete and should not be extended. For example, public final class, employee, and then the class's implementation within the curly braces. Here, no other class can extend employee. Next is final parameters. Immutable parameters. First point, when a method parameter is declared as final, it means the parameter cannot be reassigned within the method. For example, public void change name, final string new name. New name cannot be reassigned. Here, new name cannot be assigned a new value within the method body. Next, final local variables. First point, local constraint. You can also use final for local variables within methods. Once they are assigned a value, they cannot be reassigned. For example, public void, example method. Final int max is equals to 100. Max cannot be changed after this point. Why do we use final? First point, safety and predictability. By making variables, methods, or classes as final, you make your code more robust and less prone to errors, as it prevents unintended modifications. Second point, performance optimization. In some cases, the use of final can help the Java compiler optimize the code because it knows that certain variables or methods won't change. This example was also made possible by ChatGPT. 8.2. An array of stock objects called SARR exists to show the stock of all food items at any one time. An example of data that is stored in the array is shown below. SARR 0. The description is lentil salad. Stock quantity 8. Cost price 550. Selling price 880. Healthy food? Yes. SARR 1. Description: power oats. Stock quantity 15. Cost price 4. Selling price 6.40. Healthy food? Yes. SARR 2. Description: protein wrap. Stock quantity 4. Cost price 10.50. Selling price 16.80. Healthy food? Yes. SARR 3. Description: Prego steak. Stock quantity 15. Cost price 12.80. Selling price 20.48. Healthy food? No. Fairly Fit has a policy that at all times, their stock of healthy food items must be greater than or equal to 80% of their total stock of food items. For example, if they have 50 items in stock, then at least 40 of those must be healthy food items. Consider the following algorithm, which has been designed to alert the cafe manager if their stock of healthy food items drops below 80% of all items in stock. This algorithm will be tested against the sample data in SARR. This algorithm is within a method called testHealthyFood, and it returns a string value. It begins at line 1, where total stock is assigned the value of 30. Line 2, where size is assigned the value of 4. Line 3, where count is assigned the value of 0. Line 4, where alert level is assigned the value of 0.00. Line 5 where alert is set to level OK. Line 6 where we have a for loop. Now this for loop says for k is equal to 0 to size minus 1. Increment by 1. Now the direct definition of increment is the action of increasing or becoming greater. Another one is to increase step by step or by step, especially by 1. So whenever they say increment, unless they give you by 1, you must always know that it will increment by 1. Otherwise, if they say increment by 2, then you know that you have to increase the size by 2 each time you get to that particular step. So now, afterwards, we see the word begin. Line 7 is this code. It is an if statement. If SRR at k.getHealthyFood is equal to true, begin line 8, count is equal to count plus 1, end if, end for. Line 9, alert level has been set to count divided by total stock. This is a real division. Line 10, if alert level is smaller than 0.80, begin line 11, alert must be set to level low, end if. Line 12, return alert, end method. What method will be called to access the value of the variable total stock? The key giveaways in this question is method, access, and total stock. From what we can remember, we created a method called getTotalStock. So that becomes our answer. GetTotalStock. Letter B. You must complete the following trace table to show the algorithm's actions. You must include the line numbers as a reference to the line of code in the algorithm. There are more lines on the grid than are necessary for a correct answer. After answering this question, or perhaps even before, you will find a link in the description which will take you to other videos which will help you to understand trace tables better. This is called a trace table. Now that you know, you may also choose to do research yourself. That is if you are not finding the videos that I linked helpful. Those links, however, were useful in that it gave me the confidence to be able to explain this to you. So please, take a look. Now let us answer the question. The algorithm states that a method called testHealthyFood has been created which returns a string value. The method begins at line 1. Therefore, we write 1. Then in line 1, we have been told that the total stock, which is here, has been given the value of 30. Therefore, we type 30. We move on to the next row. In line 2, we are told that size has been given the value of 4. We move on to the next row. In line 3, we are told that count has been given the value of 0. We move on to the next row. In line 4, we are told that alert level has been given the value of 0.00. We move on to the next row. In line 5, we are told that alert has been given the In line 5, we have been told that alert has been given the string value level OK. Line 6, we are given a for loop. Now this for loop assigns 0 to k, and it says that for k is equal to 0 to size minus 1, we must increment by 1, which is literally 4 minus 1, which gives us the value of 3. So in other words, this for loop is supposed to loop from 0 to 3, and we're supposed to increment it by 1 each time. Now that we understand that, all we do is assign k to 0. Before line 7, we begin the for loop. Now, line 7, we are asked if SARR at k dot get healthy food is equal to true. Our value right now of k is 0. So if SARR at 0 dot get healthy food is equal to true. So now what this says is that we're supposed to look at our healthy food status at SARR at 0. Right now it is equal to yes. So now if SARR at k dot get healthy food is equal to true, we're supposed to answer this question. The answer is yes. Yes, it is equal to true. Therefore, we type true. Line 8. If it is equal to true, then we're supposed to set our count equal to count plus 1. Right now, the value of our count is 0. So 0 is equal to 0 plus 1, which gives us the value of 1. Next, we end the if statement and we go back to our for loop because we're not done with the for loop. We were asked to loop through from 0 to size minus 1, meaning that we're supposed to loop from 0 to 3. Right now, we have completed 0. So because we're done with k is equal to 0, we increment that k by 1. In line 6, our new value of k is equal to 1. Next, we move on to line 7. Line 7 says, if SARR 1, which is our new value of k, dot get healthy food is equal to true. Right now, our healthy food status at 1 is equal to yes. Therefore, it is true. We're supposed to begin this loop. So at row 10, line 7, column 8, we type true. Now we move on. If it is true, we're supposed to begin the line of code at line 8. So we're supposed to set count is equal to count plus 1. Right now, our count is equal to 1. So 1 is equal to 1 plus 1, which gives us our new value of 2. Then we loop again to line 6 because we're not done with the for loop. Here, we increment k by 1. Right now, the value of k is 1, therefore it becomes 2. So in the next row, we move on to line 7. If SARR at 2, which is our new value of k, dot get healthy food is equal to true. Right now, our healthy food status at SARR2 is equal to yes, therefore it is true. What we're going to do is in column 8, we write true. Line 8 says that we set count equal to count plus 1. Right now, the value of our count is 2. So 2 is equal to 2 plus 1, which gives us the value of 3. We end the if statement and we go back to the loop. Now, this is the final time that we'll repeat this loop because finally, in line 6, the value of our k has become 3, which is where we were asked to stop. Now, in line 7, we're supposed to check if SARR at 3.get healthy food is equal to true, which our healthy food status in SARR 3 is equal to no, therefore it is equal to false. So because this is equal to false, we're going to type false in column 8. And because it is equal to false, we do not begin the code at line number 8. And because we are also done with the loop, we move on to line number 9. Next row, line number 9. Here we're supposed to set our alert level equal to count divided by total stock. Right now the value of our count is equal to 3 and our total stock, as stated in line number 1, it is equal to 30. Therefore, 3 divided by 30 gives us 0.1. Next, line 10. If alert level is smaller than 0.08, so we type line 10. Is our alert level smaller than 0.08? Yes, it is. Therefore, we type true. And finally, if it is smaller than 0.08, we're supposed to begin this if statement at line 11. Therefore, in our next row, we type 11. In line 11, we set our alert to level low. Therefore, from level OK, our alert changes to level low. Then we end our if statement and return alert in line 12. In the return column, column 10, we set return to alert which has the value level low. And that's it. 8.2.2. Line 8 of the algorithm is currently incorrect. Letter A. Explain what is wrong with this line of code. The answer is this. This line of code is meant to sum up the total amount of healthy food in stock and not to count the different types of healthy food. Letter B. Correct the line of code so that the correct result will be achieved. The answer is this. We set our count equal to count plus SARR at k dot get stock quantity. Remember, the algorithm wants us to calculate the total percentage of healthy food and not to count the different types of healthy food. As such, we're supposed to sum up the total amount of healthy food and divide it by the total stock to get the percentage. 8.3. Fairly Fit would like to incentivize customers who use the gym and eat healthy meals in the cafe to lose weight. They wish to apply the following conditions. First point, a customer has eaten 10 healthy meals. Let this equal M. Second point, A customer has used the gym 5 times. Let this equal G. Third point, a customer is within 5 kg of their target weight. Let this equal W. Fairly Fit will reward any customer who has eaten 10 healthy meals and used the gym 5 times, or any customer who has not eaten 10 healthy meals but has used the gym 5 times and is within 5 kg of their target weight. This condition can be written as the following Boolean expression. F open bracket m comma g comma w close bracket is equal to m times g close bracket plus open bracket m prime times g times w close bracket. Complete the following truth table to represent the condition. Again, you will find links in the description that will take you to videos explaining truth tables in detail. We are told that this expression represents a Boolean expression. Therefore, we're either going to get true or false, yes or no, 1 or 0. So if you find yourself getting 2 or 3, or any other number that isn't 1 or 0, just know that you are wrong and that you should revise your answer. Because we have been given 1s and 0s to work with and true or false as our results, we will work with those. According to the exam paper, where we see a combination of letters and a period sign usually signifies multiplication. So m point g gives us m multiplied by g. M prime, g, and w gives us m prime times g times w. 1 represents true in Boolean language and 0 represents false. So wherever we see 0, we write false, and whenever we see 1, we write true. So now m prime. M prime represents the direct opposite of m. So whenever m is 0, m prime will be 1. M prime literally means the opposite of m. So if m states that a customer has eaten 10 healthy food meals, m prime would state that a customer has not eaten 10 healthy food meals. Now let us answer it. The values have been given to us in the first 3 rows of the exam papers. So here we see that m, which is a customer has eaten 10 healthy meals, has been set to false. Therefore, m prime will be set to true. We write 1. Here is a multiplication. The value for m is 0 multiplied by g, which is 0 as well. So 0 times 0 will give us 0. M prime, which we got as 1, multiplied by g, which was set to 0, and w, which was set to 0. Any number multiplied by 0 will automatically give us a 0. So based on the answers that we got, we are asked to add each together. mg, which we got as 0, plus m prime times g times w, which we also got as 0, add together. So 0 plus 0 will give us 0. So our answer in the result column will be false because 0 plus 0 is false. The result will be the answer that we got based on the 7th column. Here we got 0, therefore our result is false. Next row. M has been set to 0, therefore m prime is 1. M times g, which is 0 times 0, is 0. M prime, which is 1 times 0 times 1. Any number multiplied by 0, so long as there is 1 0, everything becomes a 0. Because g was 0, everything became 0. mg, which we got here as 0, plus m prime times g times w, which we got here as 0, gives us 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. Therefore, the result here is false. Next row. M prime. M has been set to 0, therefore m prime is 1. G has been set to 1, so m, which is 0, multiplied by 1 gives us 0. 0 times any number is 0. M prime, which we got as 1, multiplied by g, which is 1, times w, which is 0. So long as there's 1 0, everything becomes a 0. mg, which is our answer here, which is 0, plus m prime, g, and w, which is our answer here as 0, gives us 0 plus 0, which is 0. Therefore, the answer here becomes false. Next, m has been set to 0, therefore m prime is 1. M, which is 0, multiplied by g, gives us 0. Though g is 1, any number multiplied by 0 is 0. M prime multiplied by g multiplied by w is 1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 1 respectively. 1 multiplied by itself 3 times gives us 1. mg, which we got as 0, plus m prime times g times w, which we got as 1, gives us 0 plus 1, which is 1. Therefore, our result is true. 1 represents true in Boolean language. Next row. M has been set to 1, therefore M prime will be 0. M, which is 1, multiplied by G, which is 0, will give us 0. M prime, which is 0, multiplied by G, multiplied by W. It doesn't matter whether G or W is 1. So long as we have 1, 0 here, everything becomes 0. The result which we got here, M times G, which is 0, plus M prime times G times W, which is 0, gives us 0 plus 0, which is 0. Therefore, our result here is false. Next row. M is 1, therefore our M prime becomes 0. M times G, which is 1 times 0, gives us 0. M prime, which is 0, multiplied by G, which is, we can just conclude that everything here will become 0. So our result here, 0 plus 0, will give us 0. Therefore, our result is false. Next row. M is 1, therefore M prime is 0. M, which is 1, multiplied by G, which is 1 times 1. Therefore, 1 times 1 gives us 1. M prime, which is 0, multiplied by, let's just say everything will become 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. Next, mg, which we got as 1, multiplied by m prime times g times w, which we got as 0, gives us 1 plus 0, which is 1. Therefore, our answer here is true. Next row. M has been set to 1, therefore m prime is 0. M, which is 1, multiplied by g, which is 1, gives us 1 times 1, which is 1. M prime, which is 0, multiplied by g, which is 1, multiplied by w, which is 1, gives us 0 times 1 times 1, which is 0. M times g, which we got here as 1, plus m prime times g times w, which we got here as 0, gives us 1 plus 0. Therefore, our answer is 1. The result can thus be written as true. Thank you very much. For those of you who believe the reason I created this video was because I got an exceptional mark in my final exams, you are quite mistaken. The reason why I created these videos is because I am venting. 3 months ago, once the pain finally sinked in, I went to YouTube looking for consolidation, a reason, an explanation, but unfortunately I could not find the paper that I felt ruined me the most. I got so angry. Then the voice in my head said, "Why will you continue to choose to be so useless? Instead of complaining about everything, why don't you do it yourself? Use it as a way to vent and make sure you do it properly." And that is how all these videos came to be. Once all of this has been said and done, I have now come to the realization that one thing that I need most of all right now is a woman's consolation.